Storm and seed. You learn quickly in the glass cities that a storm is never just weather. It is either a blessing, a warning, a tax opportunity, or a reason for some clerk in gray to hang another notice no one can afford to obey. I stood on the cracked rooftop above Voss and Ledger Siphon Works, with rain needling my face, and watched violet lightning crawl behind the towers like the sky had split its lip and decided to smile anyway. The city below glittered in crooked layers. Glass bridges, brass gutters, soot-stained roofs, laundry lines snapping like surrender flags, and market lanterns swinging against the dark. A rare atmospheric imbalance, Master Galen Voss had called it an hour earlier, which was what educated people said when they were afraid and did not want the fear charged against their reputation. I called it a bad sign because I had no reputation to protect and because Doreen was late. "Come on, Doreen," I muttered, gripping the roof rail as another violet vein flashed over the first hall. "Be irritating somewhere I can see you." The rain hissed against the chimney stones and ran down my sleeves, cold enough to make my fingers stiff around the little Academy token in my palm. I had stolen it from a broken desk drawer, which was less impressive than it sounded because the drawer had been broken by me 3 weeks earlier. Still, the token looked official, and official objects had a way of making adults pause before striking you. "Excellent work, Dorian," I said to myself, armed with stolen brass and sarcasm. The city trembles. Behind me, the roof hatch banged open, and Master Voss hauled himself through it with his spectacles fogged, his gray hair plastered to his forehead, and his dignity losing a private war with the weather. "Why," he demanded, "are you standing on my roof during a violet storm?" I glanced at the sky. "Because standing under it felt less ambitious," I said. Master Voss wiped rain from his spectacles and pointed toward the lower districts, where the market road bent past the old ash canal. "Your sister's work route crosses the east span," he said, trying to sound calm and failing by half a breath. "The clerks have ordered stalls shut. If she has sense, she will shelter." I looked at the dark thread of road until my eyes hurt. "Doreen has sense," I said, then swallowed because that was not the same as saying she had safety. "She also has a habit of arguing with people who tell her what to do." Voss gave me a dry look. "An affliction common in your household," he said. "Not my household," I said. "I merely rent space inside disaster." Another violet flash tore the sky open, bright enough to turn every tower black at the edges, and the air pressed against my chest like a hand. Voss stopped breathing for a moment. I felt it too. Not thunder exactly, not ether current, not the invisible pressure Academy teachers claimed moved between weather, distance, and bad decisions, but something heavier above the city, something with weight, direction, and impatience. "Master," I said, keeping my voice light because panic did not need encouragement, "is the sky supposed to feel like it has selected a target?" He did not answer quickly enough. The lightning hit the eastern spire with the neat cruelty of a judge signing a sentence. For one breath, the whole glass cities turned violet white, every bridge, gutter, tower, and rain-streaked window carved out of light. Then the spire cracked. The sound rolled across the rooftops like a giant stone door being dragged open under the world, and every market bell below began screaming at once. "That," I said, as shards of glass roofwork glittered down 3 streets away, "seems administratively inconvenient." Master Voss grabbed my sleeve before I could lean farther over the rail. "Down," he said. "Now." I looked past him toward the market, where people were running between awnings and overturned carts, while vault-keeper clerks in polished gray shoved through the crowd with measuring rods raised. "Dorian," Voss said, sharper this time, "if you fall off this roof, I am not explaining to your sister that you died from curiosity." I pulled back. "She would not believe you," I said. "She knows curiosity would only wound me. Stupidity would finish the work." Below us, the market dissolved into a beautiful civic embarrassment. A fishmonger screamed that the storm had spoiled his catch, though his catch had looked personally offended long before the lightning. A fruit seller tried to drag a tarp over her stall, while 2 clerks shouted opposite instructions at her, one ordering evacuation and the other demanding she preserve taxable goods. "By decree of the keepers of measured power, all citizens will maintain orderly movement toward designated shelters," one clerk barked, slipping in a puddle as he said it. "Designated where?" someone shouted back. "Posted locations," the clerk yelled. "Posted on what?" the woman snapped. "The shelter doors are closed." I watched the clerk's face do that marvelous little collapse adults performed when reality refused to admire their paperwork. "Inspiring leadership," I said. Voss dragged me toward the roof hatch. "Do not mock the vault keepers where their clerks can hear you," he said. "They have long memories." I stepped down onto the first rung. "Everyone has long memories when they write everything down," I said. We climbed into the workroom, where hanging siphon lamps swung from ceiling hooks and half-repaired conduits clicked nervously in their trays. Master Voss moved from bench to bench, shutting valve caps, locking drawers, and muttering the names of expensive tools as if they were children who might wander into traffic. "The storm is pulling current from the outer ether seams," he said, mostly to himself. No, not natural. Too dense, too focused." I grabbed my wrench from the bench because when adults began describing disasters in technical language, it was wise to hold something heavy. "Focused on what?" I asked. Voss stopped at the window, rainlight washing his face pale. Outside, vaultkeeper horns began blaring from the direction of the east span. One long note, two short, one long. I knew that pattern. Everyone in the city knew it, even those of us who pretended not to listen to official horns on principle. Hazard, cordon. Unknown material. Voss turned toward me. "Dorian," he said slowly. "Where exactly did Doreen say she was working today?" My stomach tightened before I answered. "Market East," I said, "near the Ash Canal." The next thunderclap struck hard enough to rattle every tool on the wall, and then came a sound I had never heard from the sky before. A falling scream. The thing fell behind the market with a violet tail in the manners of a throne god. It ripped through cloud, rain, smoke, and the edge of the cracked spire's drifting glass dust, then vanished between the roofs near the Ash Canal. A heartbeat later, the street jumped. Every lamp in Voss and Ledger flared blue, then died. The floor punched up beneath my boots, shelves spat bolts and residue jars onto the ground, and Master Voss shouted, "Do not move!" which was an excellent instruction for someone who had not just heard a girl scream from the alley below. I was already moving. "Dorian!" Voss snapped behind me. "That fall sight will draw every vaultkeeper in the district." I shoved the stair door open hard enough to crack plaster. "Then they should hurry," I said. For once, he caught my sleeve at the landing and spun me halfway back. His fingers were cold, his face worse. "Listen to me," he said. "Unknown matter is not salvage. It is not a curiosity. It is not something you inspect with a wrench and a poor sense of mortality." I raised the wrench. "So you admit I am prepared." "Dorian," Voss said, and the warning in his voice nearly stopped me, because it was not anger anymore. It was fear wearing his mouth. "If it is what I think it is, proximity alone could mark your signature." I leaned closer because the stairwell was shaking. People were screaming outside, and whatever had fallen was humming through the walls like a bell buried inside my bones. "Then stop thinking," I said. "It looks painful." His grip tightened. For one thin breath, I thought he might tell me something useful, something forbidden, something that had been waiting years behind his careful eyes. Then another scream cut through the stairwell, smaller this time, choked by smoke. I pulled free. "Lock the shop," I said. "Hide the expensive things from the end of the world." Voss swore under his breath. "You are not heroic," he called after me as I ran down the steps. "You are impulsive, with good timing." I glanced back once. "I'll put it on a plaque," I said. The lower door opened into chaos. Rain slapped my face. Smoke dragged across the lane in sour gray ropes. The market crowd surged west while vaultkeeper clerks shoved east, because apparently panic and authority had agreed to collide in the narrowest street possible. "Clear the way," a clerk shouted, swinging a measuring rod like it made him taller. By order of the keepers of measured power, all unauthorized citizens must withdraw from the impact corridor. A woman carrying 2 chickens yelled, "Which corridor?" The clerk pointed everywhere. "This corridor," he shouted. I ducked under his arm and slipped between a toppled spice cart and a crying apprentice with blood on his cheek. "Unauthorized citizen withdrawing creatively," I said, but the clerk was too busy threatening poultry to hear me. The scream came again from the alley beside the Ash Canal, thin and frightened, and I ran harder. My boots slid on wet cobble. My shoulder clipped a post. Somewhere behind me, Voss shouted my name again, but the fallen thing answered louder. A deep violet pulse that tugged at the iron nails in the doors, the fillings in the old bridgestones, and something hidden under my skin that had no business waking yet. The alley looked as if the sky had tried to stab the city and missed the person it hated most. Bricks had folded inward. The cobbles had melted at their edges. Steam rose from a crater punched between a butcher's back wall and a drainage grate, and half buried in the center lay a shard about the length of my forearm, black at the edges and violet at the heart. It was not glass, not stone, not metal, and absolutely not something a sensible person touched. Naturally, I stepped closer. A boy no older than 10 crouched behind a barrel near the wall, arms over his head, sobbing hard enough to choke. "Are you bleeding?" I asked, keeping my voice low as the shard hummed through my teeth. He shook his head without looking up. "Good," I said. "That makes one of us emotionally stable." He whimpered. "Is it alive?" he asked. I looked at the shard, which pulsed once like it had heard him. "No," I said. "Probably. If it asks for soup, run." A woman in a soaked market apron stumbled into the alley entrance, saw the crater, saw me, and immediately made the face people make when they find a rat near food and a boy near responsibility. "Do not touch that," she said. I lifted my wrench with professional dignity. "I was going to prod it from a respectful distance," I said. "That is touching with a tool," she snapped. "That is science with plausible deniability," I said, edging closer. The shard's hum grew clearer. Not louder, clearer. It slid through the rain, the smoke, the scrape of distant clerks, and pressed against my thoughts as if it knew the shape of them. Bad idea, I thought. Excellent. We've identified the category. I crouched at the crater's rim and extended the wrench. The metal trembled in my hand, not from fear, though fear had submitted an application. The shard's violet center swirled like stormlight trapped under skin. "Master Voss would hate this," I murmured. The woman said, "Then don't." I tapped the shard. The pulse ran up the wrench, through my palm, into my wrist, and straight behind my eyes. My whole arm locked. The alley vanished into lines of force. Iron in the drain, lime in the mortar, heat in the steam, salt in the woman's sweat, old blood dried under cobbles from 100 ordinary injuries. I saw all of it. No, worse, I felt all of it as possible, as available, as waiting. My breath stopped, and for one hideous second I was certain the shard had reached into me and found an empty chair reserved in my name. The boy screamed. The woman shouted, "Let go!" I tried. My fingers would not open. Violet light crawled around the wrench head and flashed up my sleeve, burning cold. I made a sound that was not dignified enough to describe, and stumbled backward, wrench clattering from my hand. The connection snapped. I hit the alley wall, chest heaving, rain running into my mouth. The woman stared at me. "What did you do?" she whispered. I looked at my hand. The skin at my wrist shimmered faintly, as if a thin crystal thread had been sewn beneath it. "At the risk of sounding untrained," I said, "I may have been introduced." The shard flared before anyone could accuse me properly. Violet light spilled across the crater, caught the rain, and turned every falling drop into a needle of fire. Near the drainage grate, a dirty puddle quivered. I watched dark flecks rise out of it. Iron filings, probably washed from some smith's cart or shaved from old gate hinges. Dozens of tiny black points lifting into the air like gnats with military purpose. They spun once around the shard, then they vanished into its surface. No smoke, no spark, no polite explanation. Just gone. The alley went quiet in that awful way crowds go quiet when they realize the story they are about to tell will improve if someone dies. The apron woman crossed herself in the old right-bound fashion. The boy whispered, "It ate the metal." I swallowed and flexed my hand because my wrist still burned. "Rude," I said. "I was using that puddle." A passerby stopped at the alley mouth, one hand braced on the wall, mouth hanging open under a dripping hat. He had the soft, eager face of a man born to repeat things inaccurately. "Did that boy make it move?" he asked. "No," I said at once. This boy was standing nearby with excellent posture. The apron woman pointed at me. "He touched it," she said. Betrayal, I learned, could wear an apron. The passerby's eyes widened until I could see the rumor forming behind them, fat and healthy. "Touched it?" he said. "With his hand?" "With a wrench," I said. "A very important legal distinction." The boy peeked out from behind the barrel. His arm lit up, he added. Betrayal, I further learned, could be short and crying. I gave him a look. "I saved you from the alley," I said. "At least negotiate before ruining me." He sniffed. "You said if it asked for soup, run." The passerby took one step back. "It speaks?" he said. "No," I said too loudly. "It does not speak. It does not eat soup. It does not know me. We are not associated. The shard pulsed again, and every loose nail in the alley twitched toward it. The passerby made a strangled noise and fled. "Wonderful," I said as his footsteps slapped away through the rain. "There goes a balanced eyewitness." The apron woman grabbed the boy by the collar and pulled him toward the alley mouth. "The vault-keepers need to see this," she said. "The vault-keepers need to see less," I said, but she was already dragging the boy into the street. I looked back at the shard, still half buried, still humming like it had swallowed a secret and wanted credit. My wrist prickled. The violet thread under my skin brightened, then dimmed. I heard horns again, closer now, and boots striking cobbles in formation. If Master Voss was right, unknown matter marked signatures. If the clerks found me standing here with a glowing wrist and a wrench beside a sky-fallen impossibility, they would not call me a helpful citizen. They would call me evidence. "Well," I told the shard, crouching despite every surviving instinct, "you have made a dramatic first impression." The tiny fragment lay near the crater's edge, no larger than a broken tooth, dark on one side and violet on the other. It must have chipped free when the shard struck. It pulsed faintly, weak enough that a sensible person might have missed it, and strong enough that I absolutely did not. Behind me, the street roared with gathering voices. "Fall site secure," a clerk shouted from somewhere beyond the smoke. "Containment rods forward. No civilian handling." I stared at the fragment and felt guilt arrive exactly on time, polished and useless. "Do not," I told myself, "do not pick up forbidden sky debris while armed government clerks are jogging toward you." My hand moved anyway. I wrapped the fragment in the corner of my wet sleeve, hissed as cold bit through the cloth, and shoved it into the inner pocket of my vest. The moment it touched me, my heart kicked once, hard. The shard in the crater dimmed, almost resentful. I looked down at my pocket. "That was not consent," I whispered. A vault-keeper clerk rounded the alley entrance with 2 assistants behind him, all 3 wearing gray rain capes and the expression of men who had practiced urgency in mirrors. The lead clerk raised his measuring rod. "You there," he said. "Step away from the object." I stepped away so quickly I nearly slipped. "Gladly," I said. "Terrible conversationalist." The clerk's gaze snapped to the wrench on the ground. "Is that yours?" he asked. I looked at it, then at him, then at the crater. A good liar would have said no. A better liar would have kicked it into the steam before anyone arrived. I was neither, so I said, "In a philosophical sense, can anyone own a wrench during a crisis?" One assistant bent to retrieve it with tongs. The other pointed at my sleeve. "His cuff is burned," she said. I tucked my arm behind my back. "Fashion," I said. "Outer district." The lead clerk narrowed his eyes. "Name." I gave him my most harmless expression, the one that had failed in every serious situation but continued to show courage. "Dorian," I said. "Dorian Hartlander." The name landed, not loudly, but I saw it hit the clerk's memory. Hartlander meant orphan, workshop assistant, academy hanger-on, probable inconvenience. His measuring rod clicked once as pale light traveled along its length, searching the air between us. My wrist throbbed. The fragment in my pocket hummed against my ribs. The clerk frowned. "Hold still," he said. I did not like that sentence from anyone in authority. "I would," I said. "But the alley appears structurally undecided." The crater gave a helpful crack. Steam burst from the cobbles. One assistant flinched. The other swore. I used their distraction with the shamelessness of a person hoping to remain unclassified. I backed toward a broken side gate, then slipped through it into the butcher's rear yard. My wrist burned brighter as I ran. Under the skin, the crystalline scar had spread in a thin crescent, beautiful and wrong. Fear should have been the whole of me. It was not. Something else ran beside it, bright and breathless. Exhilaration. The worst possible companion. I pressed my hand against my pocket and whispered, "Doreen is going to kill me." Then I climbed the wall and fled before the city could decide how. By the time I circled back through the rain-slick service lanes, the vault-keepers had swallowed the alley whole. Gray cordon ropes stretched across 3 streets. Measuring rods glowed at every corner. Clerks barked orders with the confidence of people who believed volume could replace knowledge. "No citizen crosses this line," one shouted. "All witnesses report to the temporary inquiry table." The temporary inquiry table was a fish crate under a sagging awning, which told me everything I needed to know about the grandeur of law. I kept my hood low and my burned wrist tucked under my arm, trying to move with the crowd instead of against it. That is harder than it sounds when your pocket contains illegal sky matter, and every official in sight has made a career out of noticing badly hidden fear. "You," someone said. I stopped because only guilty people keep walking when addressed as furniture. Inspector Merrick Halvane stood beside the cordon in a dark gray coat cut too clean for the weather, his silver collar pins shaped like measuring scales. The gilded knife, people called him when he was not near enough to hear. His eyes rested on me like he had already found the drawer I used for secrets. Name, he said. Dorian Heartlander, I said. Because changing it would have required imagination, and mine was busy sweating. Inspector Halvane made no note. He did not need to. Men like him kept names somewhere colder than paper. You work at Voss and Ledger Siphon Works, he said. Junior assistant, I said. Odd jobs, cleaning, carrying, being blamed for objects I did not design. His mouth did not move. Were you near the impact alley? He asked. The fragment pressed cold against my ribs. My wrist pulsed once beneath my sleeve. No, I said. The lie came out clean enough to insult both of us. Halvane tilted his head. No, he repeated. No, I said again. Because sometimes the best strategy is to build a wall from terrible bricks and hope no one leans on it. He stepped closer. Multiple witnesses describe a young man with a workshop wrench near the object. I widened my eyes. In this economy? I asked. Many young men have wrenches. It is the only property class left to us. A clerk beside him coughed like he wanted to laugh and feared execution. Halvane did not blink. Your mentor reported you left the shop after the fall, he said. Voss, apparently, had chosen truth and betrayal in one efficient package. I went looking for my sister, I said, and that part was honest enough to steady my voice. Doreen Valahart. She works near the East Span. Halvane watched me for another moment, and in that silence, I felt the whole city crowding close. The fallen shard, the scorched alley, the screaming boy, the cold fragment against my heart. If you remember anything, he said, you will report it. Of course, I said. I am devoted to civic responsibility when it is survivable. His gaze dropped to my hidden wrist. Show me your hands, he said. The world narrowed. I started to lift them. Then a containment bell rang from the alley, sharp and panicked, and every vault keeper turned as violet light flashed over the rooftops. Halvane's attention broke for less than a second. I bowed like an idiot in a stage play and stepped backward into the crowd. Duty calls, I said. Yours, thankfully. Then I vanished between two fishmongers before his eyes could cut back to me. Doreen came home after dark with rain in her hair, soot on her cheek, and fury holding her upright. She shoved through the workshop door, slammed the bolt behind her, and pointed at me before I could speak. If you say one stupid thing, I will throw something heavy, she said. I looked at the room, at the shelves of tools, at Master Voss pretending not to listen from the back bench, and made a careful calculation. Define heavy, I said. She grabbed a clamp. I raised both hands. Too slow. I accept the lesson. Her mouth trembled before she forced it flat, and that frightened me more than the clamp. Doreen did not tremble unless the world had pushed past anger into something worse. The East Span shut down, she said. People were saying a piece of the sky fell into the market. One woman said it ate metal. One man said it spoke. I looked at the ceiling. To be fair, I said, the man looked like he had been waiting years for metal to speak. Doreen's eyes narrowed. You know something. Master Voss cleared his throat from the bench. Everyone knows something after an event, he said. Most of it wrong. Doreen did not look away from me. Dorian, she said, quieter now, were you near it? There it was. Not Halvane's question. Not official. Not cold. Worse, hers. My pocket felt empty because I had already hidden the fragment beneath a loose floor tile near my cot, wrapped in oilcloth and bad judgment. My wrist was bound under a strip of linen. The scar burned anyway, as if it liked witnesses. I heard a scream, I said. I went down. There was a boy. He was fine. Her shoulders dropped half an inch, relief trying to arrive while fear blocked the door. And the fall site? She asked. Dramatic, I said. Overcommitted, poorly placed. Dorian, she snapped. Did you touch it? Master Voss stopped pretending to sort valves. I gave Doreen a smile that felt borrowed from someone less terrified. Do I look like a person who would touch unknown burning matter during a government emergency? Yes, Doreen said immediately. Voss said yes at the same time. I looked between them. Hurtful unity, I said. Doreen crossed the room and caught my sleeve before I could shift away. Her thumb brushed the linen wrap. I flinched. The anger drained from her face. What happened to your wrist? She whispered. I pulled gently free and hated myself for it. Scrape, I said. Wall. Heroic fleeing. Very technical. She stared at me as if she could pull truth out through my eyes by force. For a second, I nearly told her. I nearly said violet shard, pulse, iron filings, scar under my skin, Inspector Halvain, and I am afraid something in me answered when it called. The words climbed my throat. Then the hidden fragment hummed beneath the floor, soft enough that only I heard it, and every lamp in the room flickered once. Doreen turned toward the shelves. "What was that?" she asked. I forced a laugh that landed badly. "Old wiring," I said. "The shop is held together by rust, prayer, and Master Voss's refusal to die before inventory." Voss gave me a long, unreadable look. Doreen did not laugh, but she lowered the clamp. For the moment, that had to count as mercy. That night, sleep found me like an inspector with a warrant. I lay on my cot beneath the workroom stairs, one arm across my chest, wrist throbbing under the linen, and listened to Doreen breathe in the small room beyond the partition. Master Voss had locked the shop twice, checked the vents, muttered 3 different prayers from 3 traditions he claimed not to respect, and finally retreated upstairs with the stiff posture of a man carrying a secret that had grown teeth. Under the loose floor tile beside me, the fragment hummed through oilcloth, wood, and bone. "Quiet," I whispered. "Some of us are trying to make poor decisions tomorrow." The shard did not quiet. Of course it did not. Nothing powerful had ever respected bedtime. I shut my eyes anyway, and the violet storm followed me down. In the dream, I was small enough that my father's hand swallowed mine. Rain fell black instead of clear. Not ash, not water, something between. My mother wore a traditionist field uniform, with the left sleeve burned away, her arm bleeding through soot, and she was shouting at someone I could not see. "Hold the gate," she said, though her voice tore apart at the edges. My father shoved me behind a broken stone wall and pressed a brass token into my fist. Not the academy token I stole. Older, warmer. "Dorian," he said, crouching so close I could smell smoke in his hair. "Whatever they say, you were not made for their measures." I tried to answer, but dream mouths are traitors. I only made a child's broken sound. Beyond the wall, men in black cloaks advanced through fire with hooks in their hands, and behind them stood a gray-coated figure whose face kept blurring whenever I looked straight at it. "Vitalists," someone shouted. "No," my mother said, and the fear in her voice changed shape. "Not only them." A horn cried. A uniform caught fire. My father turned toward the gray-coated figure and shouted a name, but thunder swallowed the first half. "Len!" he yelled, or maybe Yellen, or maybe dreams had learned to mock me with syllables. My mother drew stone from the shattered wall, lithic light burning around her hands as black hooks lashed toward her. "Run," she said, and this time she looked directly at me. "Do not let them weigh your breath." I woke choking on smoke that was not there. The room was dark except for the violet thread glowing under the linen on my wrist. For 1 second, I saw my mother's burning sleeve overlaid on my own arm. Then the vision broke, and I was back beneath the stairs with rain ticking against the roof and Doreen stirring behind the partition. "Dorian," she called softly. I swallowed the dream, the shard, the name, and the fear all at once. "Go back to sleep," I said, voice rough. "The city is done falling for tonight." She was quiet for a breath. "That is not funny," she said. I looked toward the loose floor tile, where the hidden fragment pulsed once like a second heart. "I know," I whispered. "That is how you can tell I meant it." Here ends Chapter 1, Storm and Siege.